Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty and watched the enemy ships destroy another human colony. The bright flashes of plasma fire lit up the darkness of space as the alien warships turned the settlement into burning dust. He gripped the metal railing with white knuckles and felt his heart sink deeper with each explosion. The Zephyrian Empire had been crushing humanity for 3 long months. Their crystal ships moved like deadly ghosts through space, and their energy, weapons cut through human defenses like hot knives through butter. 12 worlds had already fallen to their advance, and now they surrounded New Terra, the heart of human civilization. Jake had seen many battles in his 20 years of service, but nothing like this. The aliens fought with cold precision and showed no mercy to civilians. Their ships were beautiful in a terrible way, made of some kind of living crystal that seemed to bend light around them. When they fired their weapons, beams of pure energy would lance out and turn entire city blocks into glass. Admiral Lisa Carter called all ship captains to an emergency meeting on the orbital defense station. Jake left his first officer in charge and took a shuttle to the massive ring that circled New Terra like a metal moon. As he walked through the corridors, he could see the worry on every face. Soldiers who had fought in dozens of campaigns now looked like scared children. The meeting room was packed with the remaining fleet commanders. Jake counted 43 ship captains in total, representing all that was left of humanity's once mighty space navy. Admiral Carter stood at the front of the room, her gray hair tied back in a tight bun and her uniform crisp despite the desperate situation. "The enemy has given us an ultimatum," she said in a voice that carried the weight of worlds. 6 hours, to surrender unconditionally or they will destroy every human world in this sector. Our scouts report they have positioned massive weapons around New Terra. These siege engines can crack a planet's core. The room erupted in angry voices. Some captains demanded they fight to the last ship, while others argued for evacuation. Jake stayed quiet and listened to the debate rage back and forth. He knew that 43 ships could not stand against 300 enemy vessels, but the thought of surrender made his stomach turn. Dr. Nathan Blake sat in his laboratory deep, inside the research facility on New Terra's northern continent. He had been working on defensive systems for the past 72 hours straight, trying to find some weakness in the alien technology. His eyes burned from staring at computer screens and his hands shook from too much coffee and too little sleep. The encrypted message came through on a channel that should not have existed. Blake stared at the screen in confusion as the ancient, military codes decoded themselves. The transmission contained star coordinates to a location in deep space that showed nothing but empty void on all star charts. At the end of the message was a single word that made his blood run cold: Phoenix. Blake recognized the code name from classified files he had read 20 years ago during his early days in military research. Project Phoenix had been buried so deep in black operations that most people believed it was just a rumor. The official record stated that the project had been canceled due to budget constraints and technical impossibilities. He grabbed his secure communicator and tried to reach Admiral Carter. The orbital station was under communication blackout due to enemy jamming, but Blake knew ways to get through systems that others could not. His hands moved quickly across the keyboard as he worked to establish a connection. Commander Amy Rodriguez led her reconnaissance team through the asteroid field beyond New Terra's third moon. Her stealth ship moved silently between the floating rocks while passive sensors gathered intelligence on enemy positions. What she found made her wish she had never volunteered for this mission. The Zephyrians had brought more than just warships to the battle. Hidden behind the larger asteroids were massive siege engines, each one the size of a small space station. These weapons were designed for one purpose: to destroy planets from the inside out. Amy watched through her ship's cameras as the aliens made final adjustments to the targeting systems. Her pilot, a young man named Gary Stone, whispered a prayer under his breath as they counted the enemy machines. 15 siege engines surrounded New Terra in a perfect pattern that would allow them to fire directly into the planet's core. The weapons used some kind of gravitational technology that could make a world tear itself apart. Amy ordered her communications officer to send an emergency report back to the fleet. The message would have to be transmitted in short bursts to avoid detection by enemy sensors. Each burst contained crucial information about weapon positions and firing angles that might help the defense forces prepare for what was coming. Back on the Liberty, Jake received word that all ship captains were being recalled to their vessels. The 6-hour deadline was approaching fast, and Admiral Carter had made her decision. Humanity would not surrender without a fight, even if that fight seemed hopeless. As Jake's shuttle approached his ship, he could see the enemy fleet moving into attack formation. The crystal ships reflected the light from New Terra's sun and created rainbow patterns across their hulls. It would have been beautiful if those same ships were not preparing to commit genocide against his entire species. The crew of the Liberty worked with desperate efficiency to prepare for battle. Weapons were charged, shields were brought to maximum power, and damage control teams took their positions. Jake walked through the corridors and tried to give encouragement to his people, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They all knew this would likely be their last battle. Dr. Blake finally managed to establish contact with Admiral Carter, just as she returned to the command center. He transmitted the coordinates and the Phoenix code word, watching as understanding dawned on her face. She stared at the message for a long moment before ordering him to prepare a detailed analysis of the transmission. The countdown timer showed 4 hours and 37 minutes until the enemy deadline. In space above New Terra, 43 human ships prepared to face an enemy that outnumbered them 7-1. The odds were impossible, but humanity had never been known to give up without a fight. What none of them knew was that help was coming from a direction they could never have imagined. Dr. Blake stood in Admiral Carter's command center and explained what he knew about the Phoenix transmission. The coordinates pointed to a region of space that appeared completely empty on every sensor scan and star chart. The area was marked as a navigation hazard due to unusual gravitational readings, but no one had ever investigated it thoroughly. Admiral Carter studied the data with growing concern. She needed every ship to defend New Terra, but the mysterious message suggested that something important waited in that empty region of space. The timing seemed too perfect to be coincidence, arriving just as humanity faced its darkest hour. "I need someone I can trust to investigate these coordinates," she told the assembled officers. "This mission could be a wild chase after nothing, or it could be our only hope. Either way, whoever goes might not make it back." Captain Jake Morrison stepped forward without hesitation. "I'll take the Liberty and a small crew. We can reach those coordinates in 3 hours if we push the engines hard. That still gives us time to return before the enemy deadline." The Admiral nodded slowly. She knew Jake was one of her best captains, but sending him away from the main battle felt like gambling with humanity's future. Still, the Phoenix code came from sources that had never been wrong before, even if those sources were supposed to be extinct. Jake selected a minimal crew for the mission. His pilot, Helen Grant, had the best navigation skills in the fleet and could find her way through any region of space. Engineer Kevin Torres knew the Liberty systems better than anyone and could keep the ship running even if they encountered unexpected problems. The rest of his crew would stay behind to help with the defense of New Terra. The Liberty departed from the orbital station while enemy ships watched from beyond the system's edge. The Zephyrians seemed content to wait for their deadline, confident that humanity could not escape the trap they had set. They paid no attention to one human ship leaving the formation. As the Liberty jumped to hyperspace, Jake wondered what they would find at the coordinates. The Phoenix project had been classified beyond his security clearance, but he remembered rumors of experimental weapons and technologies that defied current understanding of physics. Most officers assumed these stories were just wishful thinking. The journey through hyperspace felt longer than usual, despite lasting only 3 hours. Helen Grant monitored their course carefully as they approached the target coordinates. Her instruments showed nothing ahead except empty space and background radiation. There were no planets, no asteroids, and no signs that anything had ever existed in this region. "Coordinates achieved, Captain," Helen reported as they dropped out of hyperspace. "Sensors show nothing but cosmic dust and a few random energy signatures. Whatever was supposed to be here, it's either gone or never existed." Jake stared at the main screen showing the empty void around them. He felt a crushing disappointment as he realized they had wasted precious time chasing phantoms while their people prepared to die. The Phoenix transmission had led them to absolutely nothing. Kevin Torres worked at his engineering station and frowned at the readings he was getting. "Captain, I'm detecting some unusual gravitational distortions about 10 kilometers off our port side. The patterns don't match anything in our database, but they're definitely artificial." Jake ordered Helen to move the ship toward the distortions. As they approached, the readings became stronger but still showed no visible source. It was as if invisible mass was bending space around them in ways that should not be possible. "Try broadcasting the Phoenix authentication codes," Jake ordered his communications officer. He remembered reading about ancient military protocols that used specific frequency patterns to identify friendly forces. If something was hidden in this region, those codes might be the key to finding it. The transmission went out on multiple frequencies using patterns from Earth's early space military. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to shimmer and bend around them like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The stars beyond started to shift and move as reality warped in ways that hurt to look at directly. A massive shape began to materialize in front of them, growing larger and more solid with each passing second. What emerged from the dimensional fold was a warship unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The vessel was over 1 kilometer long with hull plating that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange energy patterns flowed across its surface, like liquid electricity. "My God," Helen whispered as she stared at the impossible sight. "That ship is 3 times larger than our biggest battlecruiser. How could something that massive stay hidden out here?" The alien warship opened a communication channel, and a human voice came through their speakers. "Liberty, this is Captain Daniel Stone of the UES Shadowhawk. Welcome to the Phoenix Nest. We've been waiting a long time for someone to find us." Jake felt his legs go weak as he recognized the name. Daniel Stone had been one of Earth's most decorated captains before disappearing 20 years ago during a classified mission. Official records stated that his ship had been destroyed with all hands, but here he was speaking to them from a vessel that should not exist. "Captain Stone, this is Jake Morrison of the Liberty. We received Phoenix authentication codes and followed them here. Are you really alive after all these years?" "Alive and well, Captain Morrison. My crew and I volunteered for a mission that required us to disappear from normal space. We've been waiting in this dimensional pocket for 2 decades, preparing for the day when humanity would need us most. That day has apparently arrived." The Shadowhawk moved closer to the Liberty with grace that defied its massive size. Jake could see weapon systems along its hull that looked advanced beyond anything in the current human fleet. The ship's technology appeared to be decades ahead of what Earth's best scientists had achieved. Captain Stone explained that the Phoenix Project had been a deep black operation designed to create humanity's ultimate defensive capability. Using technology recovered from crashed alien vessels, Earth scientists had built ships that could exist partially outside normal spacetime. These ghost ships were invisible to all known sensors and could strike from directions that enemies would never expect. "How many ships like yours exist?" Jake asked as he tried to process the implications of what he was learning. 13 vessels total, positioned throughout human space in hidden dimensions. Each one crewed by volunteers who agreed to sacrifice their normal lives to become humanity's secret guardians. "We've been watching the war develop and preparing countermeasures against Zephyrian technology." Jake felt hope beginning to replace the despair that had filled him since the siege began. 13 advanced warships might be enough to turn the tide of battle, especially if they possessed technology that the enemy had never encountered before. Captain Stone transmitted detailed tactical information about the Ghost Fleet's capabilities. Their weapons could bypass energy shields and their defenses could bend space to deflect incoming fire. Most importantly, they had developed specific countermeasures against the crystalline technology that made Zephyrian ships so dangerous. "We need to return to New Terra immediately," Jake said as he watched the tactical data scroll across his screens. "The enemy deadline is in less than 2 hours, and Admiral Carter needs to know about your fleet." "Go ahead, Captain Morrison." "MBO Shadowhawk will follow in stealth mode. It's time for the galaxy to learn that humanity has been preparing for this war longer than anyone imagined. The ghosts are ready to become legends." The Liberty raced back toward New Terra. while Captain Stone began activating the other hidden vessels throughout human space. Jake listened to the encrypted communications as ghost ships that had been sleeping for decades suddenly came to life across the galaxy. Near Proxima Centauri, Captain Rachel Barnes received the activation codes on the UES Nightfall. Her ship had been hiding in the space between dimensions for 18 years, watching trade routes and studying alien ship movements. Rachel and her crew had volunteered for isolation duty when they were young officers fresh from the academy. Now they were seasoned warriors ready to strike. In the asteroid belt around Sol, Captain Scott Williams commanded the UES Phantom from its hiding place among the rocky debris. His ship specialized in stealth attacks and had been gathering intelligence on alien technology since the war began. Scott had watched helplessly as enemy fleets passed through his sector, but orders required him to remain hidden until the Phoenix activation. One by one, 12 more ghost ships received their wake-up calls. The UES Wraith decloaked near the ruins of Titan Colony, while the UES Spectre emerged from its dimensional pocket beyond the outer rim. Each vessel carried weapons and technology that had been perfected during 20 years of secret development. Captain Stone explained to Jake how the Ghost Fleet had been created. After Earth discovered wreckage from an alien scout ship in 2156, military scientists reverse-engineered technology that could manipulate space and time. The breakthrough came when they learned to phase matter partially out of normal reality, making it invisible to conventional sensors. The ghost ships existed in a state between dimensions, able to observe the normal universe while remaining completely hidden. Their crews had aged normally during their isolation, but advanced medical technology kept them in fighting condition. Many had families they had not seen in decades, sacrificing personal happiness for humanity's survival. Admiral Carter received Jake's report just as the enemy deadline approached. The orbital defense station buzzed with activity as officers tried to understand the implications of a secret fleet that had existed for 20 years. Some questioned why the ghost ships had not intervened earlier to prevent the war's devastation. Dr. Blake studied the technical data transmitted from the Shadowhawk and felt his understanding of physics being rewritten. The Ghost Fleet's quantum torpedoes could ignore energy shields by existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their phase cannons fired energy beams that passed through solid matter until activated inside enemy hulls. The most impressive technology was the dimensional anchor system that allowed the ships to appear anywhere in space instantly. Unlike hyperspace, jumps that took time and could be detected, ghost ships simply stepped from one location to another through folded space. This gave them unlimited tactical mobility. On New Terra's surface, Major Tony Garcia prepared his ground forces for the alien invasion that would follow the orbital bombardment. His resistance cells included Sergeant Kate Murphy, a demolitions expert who had been setting charges throughout the capital city, and Sergeant Chris Lee, a communications specialist who maintained contact with the orbital defense network. Major Garcia received encrypted orders to prepare for synchronized ground strikes. The message came through channels he had never seen before, using authentication codes that predated his military service. Someone with very high clearance was coordinating a complex operation that involved forces he knew nothing about. The Zephyrian fleet moved into final attack positions as their deadline approached. Admiral Kethvar commanded the alien forces from his fortress ship, a massive crystal structure that served as both warship and mobile command center. He felt confident that humanity would surrender rather than face complete annihilation. The alien admiral had studied human military capabilities and found them inadequate. Their ships were primitive, their weapons were ineffective against crystal armor, and their tactics were predictable. The siege would end with minimal losses to his fleet, and another easy victory for the Zephyrian Empire. What Admiral Kethvar did not know was that sensors throughout his fleet were failing to detect 13 of the most advanced warships ever built. The Ghost Fleet moved through space like deadly shadows, positioning themselves for strikes that would come from impossible directions. Captain Stone coordinated the attack plan with surgical precision. Each ghost ship had studied Zephyrian technology for months, identifying weak points in their crystal armor and energy systems. The aliens had never encountered weapons that could bypass their defenses because such technology did not exist in normal space. The UES Nightfall took position behind the enemy supply lines, ready to cut off reinforcements and escape routes. Captain Barnes had mapped every ship in the alien formation and assigned priority targets based on strategic importance. Her quantum torpedoes would strike command vessels first to disrupt enemy coordination. The UES Phantom moved through the asteroid field surrounding New Terra, using its stealth systems to approach the massive siege engines. Captain Williams and his crew had spent weeks studying the alien superweapons, learning how their gravitational technology worked. They knew exactly where to strike to cause catastrophic failures. Admiral Carter made the difficult decision to integrate the Ghost Fleet into her defense plans. The regular human ships would serve as visible targets to draw alien attention, while the Ghost Fleet struck from stealth. It was a dangerous gamble that required perfect timing and coordination. Dr. Blake worked frantically to modify the orbital defense systems to support Ghost Fleet operations. The hidden ships needed targeting data and communication relays to coordinate their attacks. He established quantum encrypted channels that could not be intercepted or jammed by alien technology. Major Garcia positioned his ground forces near the sites where siege engines would need to establish targeting locks on New Terra's core. His teams carried experimental weapons that had been secretly developed alongside the Ghost Fleet technology. These devices could disrupt the aliens' gravitational manipulation systems. The countdown reached its final minutes as both sides prepared for battle. The Zephyrian fleet powered up their weapons, while human ships moved into defensive formations. What appeared to be a hopeless last stand was actually an elaborate trap that had been 20 years in the making. Captain Jake Morrison returned to the Liberty and briefed his crew on what they had discovered. His officers listened in amazement as he described technology that seemed like science fiction. The knowledge that humanity possessed such capabilities filled them with hope and determination. The Ghost Fleet captains conducted final system checks and confirmed their readiness for combat. Their crews had trained for this moment through countless simulations, but nothing could prepare them for the reality of revealing themselves after decades in hiding. They were about to show the galaxy that humanity's true strength lay not in what enemies could see, but in what remained hidden in the shadows of space. The 6-hour deadline expired and Admiral Kethavar gave the order to begin the bombardment of New Terra. His crystal ships moved into firing positions, while the massive siege engines prepared to crack the planet's core. The alien commander expected the human fleet to make a desperate charge that would end in their complete destruction. Captain Stone watched from the Shadowhawk as the enemy weapons charged their energy systems. The timing had to be perfect, or the surprise would be wasted. He waited until the Zephyrian ships were fully committed to their attack formation before giving the activation signal that would change the course of the war. All ghost ships, this is Phoenix 1. Execute Operation Revelation. Time to show them what humanity has been hiding in the dark. The UES Shadowhawk materialized inside the enemy formation like a nightmare made real. The massive warship appeared without warning directly between 3 Zephyrian capital ships, its quantum torpedoes, already firing before the aliens could react. The first enemy vessel exploded in a cascade of shattered crystal as weapons that ignored its shields tore through its hull. Admiral Kethavar stared in shock as his flagship's sensors registered impossible readings. A human warship 3 times, larger than their biggest battlecruiser, had appeared from nowhere and was cutting through his fleet like a blade through paper. The vessel's weapons used technology that his scientists claimed could not exist. The UES Nightfall struck the Zephyrian supply lines with devastating precision. Captain Barnes had studied the enemy logistics network for months and knew exactly which ships to target. Her quantum torpedoes destroyed ammunition transports and fuel tankers, leaving the main battle fleet cut off from reinforcements and supplies. Enemy ships tried to return fire, but their energy beams passed harmlessly through the Nightfall's hull. The Ghost ship's phase technology allowed it to exist partially outside normal space, making conventional weapons useless against it. Barnes smiled grimly as she watched alien gunners waste their shots on a target they could not truly hit. The UES Phantom emerged from the asteroid field and attacked the siege engines with surgical strikes. Captain Williams had identified the exact points where the massive weapons were most vulnerable to disruption. His phase cannons fired beams of energy that passed through the engine's armor and detonated their power cores from within. The first siege engine exploded in a ball of twisted metal and exotic energy. The gravitational weapon's destruction sent shockwaves through space that disrupted the alignment of the other superweapons. One by one, Williams and his crew systematically destroyed the devices that threatened New Terra's core. On the planet's surface, Major Garcia coordinated ground strikes with orbital bombardment. His teams used experimental disruptor weapons to interfere with alien targeting systems, while Sergeant Murphy's demolition charges took out enemy communication arrays. The aliens found their carefully planned siege falling apart from multiple directions. Sergeant Chris Lee maintained communication links between the surface forces and the Ghost Fleet. His quantum-encrypted channels allowed real-time coordination between units that were supposed to be impossible to contact. The aliens' jamming systems proved useless against technology they had never encountered. Admiral Carter watched in amazement as the Ghost Fleet tore through enemy formations with impossible ease. 12 more warships decloaked throughout the battle zone, each one striking at targets that had been identified during years of hidden observation. The Zephyrian fleet was being destroyed by enemies that should not exist. The UES Wraith attacked the alien communication command ship while the UES Spectre eliminated enemy sensor platforms. Ghost ships appeared and disappeared throughout the battle zone like deadly phantoms, striking without warning and vanishing before return fire could be coordinated. Admiral Kethvar tried to adapt his tactics to counter the human Ghost Fleet, but his forces were fighting technology that operated by unknown rules. Weapons that should have been blocked by energy shields penetrated his ship's defenses. Vessels that appeared on sensors suddenly became untouchable by conventional fire. The alien commander ordered a fighting retreat, hoping to regroup beyond the system's edge and call for reinforcements. What he discovered was that more ghost ships had positioned themselves along every escape route. The trap had been planned for 20 years, and there were no gaps in its coverage. Captain Stone coordinated the encirclement with cold precision. The Shadowhawk and its sister ships had studied Zephyrian tactical doctrine extensively during their years of hidden observation. Every possible enemy response had been anticipated and countered before the battle began. The UES Nightfall cut off the main escape route, while the UES Phantom blocked access to the hyperspace jump points. Smaller ghost ships herded fleeing enemy vessels into killing zones where the larger warships waited with charged weapons. The alien fleet found itself trapped in a maze of death. Dr. Blake monitored the battle from New Terra's research facility and marveled at the effectiveness of technology he had helped develop decades ago. The quantum torpedoes were performing, exactly as theoretical models had predicted, while the phase cannons exceeded their designed specifications. The regular human fleet joined the battle as the ghost ships revealed the full extent of their capabilities. Captain Jake Morrison led the Liberty in support of the Shadowhawk, his crew fighting alongside legends they had thought were dead. The combination of conventional and advanced forces proved unstoppable. Major Garcia's ground teams captured intact Zephyrian equipment as the alien landing forces collapsed. Sergeant Kate Murphy led assault teams through enemy positions, while Sergeant Chris Lee coordinated with orbital strikes to eliminate remaining resistance. The planet's surface was secured within hours. Admiral Kethvar made a final, desperate attempt to break through the encirclement, concentrating his remaining ships in a spearhead formation aimed at the weakest point in the Ghost Fleet's coverage. What he found instead was the UES Shadowhawk waiting with all weapons charged and ready. The alien flagship's crystal armor, which had seemed invulnerable to human weapons for months, shattered like glass under quantum torpedo bombardment. Captain Stone's weapons fired from multiple dimensions simultaneously, hitting the enemy ship from directions that did not exist in normal space. As his flagship died around him, Admiral Kethvar realized that humanity had been playing a deeper game than his intelligence services had ever imagined. The species he had considered primitive had been preparing for this war since before it began, building weapons that his people could not counter or even understand. The battle ended with the complete destruction of the Zephyrian invasion force. Not a single alien ship escaped to report what they had encountered at New Terra. The Ghost Fleet's existence remained humanity's secret weapon for whatever conflicts might come next. Captain Stone opened communications with Admiral Carter as the last enemy vessel exploded in the distance. "Admiral, this is Phoenix 1. The immediate threat has been eliminated. Request permission to begin Phase 2 operations." Admiral Carter stared at her tactical displays showing 13 impossible warships that had just saved her entire civilization. "Permission granted, Captain Stone. What exactly is Phase 2? "Taking the fight to their homeworlds, Admiral. It's time the galaxy learned what happens when you threaten humanity." The aftermath of the battle left New Terra's orbital space filled with debris from the destroyed Zephyrian fleet. Captain Stone and his crew finally returned to normal dimensional space after 20 years of isolation, their sacrifice having saved humanity from total destruction. The ghost ships floated among the wreckage like dark angels of death, their impossible technology finally revealed. Admiral Carter coordinated the cleanup operations while trying to understand the full implications of what she had witnessed. The Ghost Fleet represented military capabilities that dwarfed anything in the regular human navy. These ships could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning and strike with weapons that ignored known defensive systems. Captain Jake Morrison docked the Liberty with the orbital station and immediately requested a meeting with the Ghost Fleet commanders. Walking through the corridors of the Shadowhawk felt like stepping into the future, with technology that seemed decades ahead of current human achievements. The crew members he met had aged 20 years in isolation, but carried themselves with the quiet confidence of warriors who had prepared for this moment their entire adult lives. Dr. Blake worked frantically to analyze captured Zephyrian technology and integrate Ghost Fleet systems into the regular Navy. The aliens' crystal-based weapons were impressive, but primitive compared to quantum torpedoes that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Humanity had been building countermeasures to alien technology since before the war began. The true scope of the Ghost Fleet program became clear as intelligence reports arrived from throughout human space. Hidden shipyards had been operating in dimensional pockets for decades, building vessels using reverse-engineered alien technology. The program included not just warships, but entire support fleets with manufacturing capabilities that could produce advanced weapons in unlimited quantities. Captain Rachel Barnes met with Admiral Carter to discuss the strategic situation. Nightfall had been gathering intelligence on Zephyrian military installations throughout their empire, mapping weak points and identifying targets for future operations. The Ghost Fleet knew more about alien capabilities than human intelligence services had learned through years of conventional espionage. Major Tony Garcia led the interrogation of captured alien officers while his team secured Zephyrian equipment. The prisoners were shocked to discover that humanity possessed technology superior to their own. They had been taught that their empire was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, but the battle at New Terra had shattered that belief completely. Sergeant Kate Murphy supervised the demolition of alien siege engines, carefully studying their gravitational manipulation technology. The weapons were more advanced than anything in the human arsenal, but Ghost Fleet scientists had already developed countermeasures based on theoretical research conducted during their years of hidden preparation. Captain Scott Williams revealed that the Ghost Fleet had been conducting covert operations throughout Zephyrian space for months. The UES Phantom and similar stealth vessels had sabotaged alien supply lines and eliminated key military leaders without leaving evidence of human involvement. The Zephyrians had attributed these losses to internal conflicts. The Ghost Fleet's dimensional anchor technology allowed instant travel between any points in space, giving humanity strategic mobility that no other species possessed. While alien fleets required days or weeks to move between star systems, ghost ships could appear anywhere in the galaxy within minutes of receiving orders. Dr. Blake discovered that the Ghost Fleet included mobile research stations that had been developing new weapons throughout their isolation. These floating laboratories had created improvements to quantum torpedo technology and phase cannon systems that made the already advanced weapons even more devastating against conventional targets. Admiral Carter began planning humanity's expansion into former Zephyrian territory. The Ghost Fleet could strike at alien worlds with impunity, while regular human forces consolidated gains and established permanent bases. For the first time since the war began, humanity could take the offensive against their enemies. The political implications of the Ghost Fleet's revelation sent shockwaves through human government. Politicians who had authorized the secret program decades ago watched their hidden investment pay off in spectacular fashion, while others demanded explanations for why such capabilities had been kept secret during months of devastating defeats. Captain Stone addressed the assembled fleet commanders and explained the philosophy behind the Ghost Fleet program. We became ghosts so that humanity could live. When our people needed legends, we stepped out of the shadows. Tomorrow, we'll disappear. Again, watching over our species from the spaces between space, the ghost ships began returning to their hidden dimensions, but not before transferring critical technology to the regular Navy. New warships would be built incorporating quantum weapons and phase defense systems, giving humanity a technological advantage over any potential enemies. The days of being the underdog in galactic conflicts were over. Major Garcia coordinated with Ghost Fleet intelligence officers to plan strikes against remaining Zephyrian military installations. The aliens had several fortress worlds that served as staging areas for further expansion, but these supposedly impregnable positions would prove vulnerable to attacks from enemies that could appear inside their defensive perimeters. Sergeant Chris Lee established permanent communication links between surface forces and the Ghost Fleet using quantum-encrypted channels. Future operations would benefit from real-time coordination between conventional and advanced units, allowing for combined arms tactics that would overwhelm any opposition. The captured alien officers were eventually released with carefully selected information about humanity's true capabilities. They would return to their empire carrying news that humans possessed technology beyond Zephyrian understanding, serving as unwitting agents of psychological warfare that would undermine enemy morale. Captain Jake Morrison returned to his duties aboard the Liberty with a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. The species he had thought was struggling for survival actually possessed the most advanced military technology known to exist. Earth's scientists had taken alien discoveries and improved them beyond the original creator's imagination. New Ghost ships took position throughout the galaxy, crewed by volunteers ready to spend decades in hidden dimensions. These guardians would watch over humanity's expansion and ensure that no future enemy could threaten human civilization with the same impunity the Zephyrians had enjoyed. The message sent by the Ghost Fleet's revelation echoed throughout the galaxy. As survivors spread word of humanity's hidden capabilities, other alien species began reassessing their relationships with humans, realizing that the seemingly weak newcomers possessed technology that could destroy any opponent foolish enough to threaten them. Captain Stone's final log entry reflected on the price of security that his generation had paid. We gave up normal lives to become humanity's guardians in the dark. We watched from the shadows while our people suffered, waiting for the moment when our sacrifice would matter most. Today proved that some prices are worth paying. The Ghost Fleet faded back into the dimensions between space, leaving behind a humanity transformed from desperate survivors into the galaxy's newest superpower. Hidden shipyards continued building advanced vessels, while secret research stations developed even more devastating weapons. The next species to threaten human civilization would discover that some enemies prefer to remain invisible until the killing blow is struck. Admiral Carter stood on the observation deck of New Terra's orbital station and watched the last ghost ship disappear into dimensional fold. Humanity had learned that its greatest strength lay not in what enemies could see but in what remained hidden until the moment of truth arrived. The galaxy would never underestimate the human species again.